The space station horizon's edge floated in the dark like a metal flower. Below it, the forest moon of Velkari Prime turned slowly, covered in thick green trees that stretched for thousands of miles. The station was old but clean, built by 3 different species over many years. Now it served as a meeting place, a neutral ground where aliens could talk without fighting. Yuna pressed her face against the window and watched the moon below. She was 28 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that noticed everything. She had studied alien life for 6 years, but this was her first real assignment. The Velkari had finally agreed to let humans visit their territory. She would be one of the first to meet them face to face. "Stop staring at the window like a child," said a voice behind her. She turned and smiled. Tejo stood in the doorway, carrying 2 heavy bags over his shoulders like they weighed nothing. He was tall, much taller than her, with broad shoulders and hands that could crush metal pipes. But his face was soft and kind, and he smiled more than anyone she knew. "I am excited," Yuna said. "The Velkari are amazing. Their whole culture is built around hunting. They see themselves as the greatest predators in this part of the galaxy." Tejo dropped the bags and stretched his back. "And they agreed to meet with us? The species with no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons? They think we are harmless, soft, easy prey." Yuna laughed quietly. "They accepted the meeting because they do not see us as a threat. Should I be offended? No. You should be careful. The Velkari do not understand humans yet. They read our biology reports and decided we are weak. We need to show them we are worth respecting, without making them feel challenged." Tejo nodded slowly. He was an engineer, not a diplomat. His job was to keep the station running, fix broken machines, and stay out of the way during important meetings. But he had asked to come on this mission because Yuna asked him. They had been partners for 3 years. Where she went, he followed. The door at the end of the hallway opened with a soft hiss. A figure stepped through, and Yuna felt her breath catch in her throat. The Velkari looked like a great cat, walking on 2 legs. Its body was covered in short golden fur with dark stripes running down its back. Its eyes were large and yellow, with vertical pupils that focused on the 2 humans with sharp intelligence. It stood slightly taller than Tejo, and its hands ended in curved claws that clicked against the metal floor. "I am Elder Ravka," the creature said. Its voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "You are the human researchers." Yuna bowed her head slightly. "I am Yuna. This is Tejo. We thank you for allowing us into your territory." Elder Ravka's eyes moved from Yuna to Tejo, studying them both. Its nose twitched, smelling the air around them. Yuna knew the Velkari had powerful senses. They could smell fear, excitement, and lies. She kept her breathing steady and her heart calm. "You are smaller than I expected," Ravka said. "Your species has no natural defenses. No poison, no armor, no speed. How have you survived?" "We work together," Yuna said simply. "We protect each other." Ravka made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Pack behavior. Like the small creatures that live in burrows on our world. They also work together. We eat them." Tejo shifted his weight, but said nothing. Yuna touched his arm gently, telling him to stay calm. "We hope to learn about your culture," Yuna said, "and share our own. Perhaps we can find common ground." Ravka stared at them for a long moment. Then it turned and walked back toward the door. "Follow me. I will show you the living quarters. You may observe, but do not interfere with our ways. If you cause problems, I will send you back to your ship in pieces." Yuna glanced at Tejo. He raised his eyebrows but followed without complaint. They walked through long hallways filled with strange smells and sounds. Other Velkari watched them pass, their yellow eyes tracking every movement. Some were smaller than Ravka, with lighter fur and curious expressions. Others were massive, scarred warriors who looked at the humans like they were looking at food. Finally, they reached a large open chamber. Yuna stopped and stared. The room was built to look like a forest. Real trees grew from the floor, their branches reaching toward artificial sunlight. A small stream ran through the center, and the ground was covered in soft moss and fallen leaves. It was beautiful. A piece of the Velkari homeworld brought into space. But what caught Yuna's attention were the children. Velkari cubs played among the trees, chasing each other, climbing branches, and wrestling in the moss. They were small, only reaching Yuna's waist, with oversized paws and ears that seemed too big for their heads. Their fur was fluffy and soft, not yet grown into the sleek coats of adults. "This is the nursery," Ravka said. "Our young are raised here, together. Away from the dangers of the homeworld. They learn to hunt, to fight, to become true Velkari." Yuna watched a group of cubs practicing strange poses. They crouched low to the ground, their fur standing up, their small claws extended, their faces twisted into fierce expressions, showing tiny fangs. They held perfectly still, like statues. "What are they doing?" Yuna asked. "The hunting stance," Ravka said, and there was pride in its voice. "It is our oldest tradition. When a Velkari takes the hunting stance, it tells the prey that death has come. The prey freezes in fear. The hunt becomes easy. Our children must master this stance before they can be called true hunters." Yuna nodded, fascinated. The cubs looked serious and determined, practicing their poses over and over. Adult Velkari watched from the edges of the room, calling out corrections and encouragement. Tejo moved closer to get a better look. He was always curious about children, no matter what species. He had a natural warmth that young creatures seemed to sense. "Do not get too close," Ravka warned. "The cubs are practicing. They may see you as prey." Tejo smiled. "They are so small. I do not think they could hurt me." Ravka's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand. The hunting stance is sacred. If a cub takes the stance against you, you must respond properly. You must show fear. You must submit. This teaches them that the stance has power." Yuna opened her mouth to explain this to Tejo, but it was too late. 3 cubs had noticed him. They stopped their practice and turned their yellow eyes toward the tall human. The largest one, a female with silver streaks in her fur, made a low sound in her throat. The other 2, smaller and younger, moved to flank her on either side. Slowly, deliberately, all 3 cubs dropped into the hunting stance. Their fur rose, their claws extended, their eyes locked onto Tejo with deadly focus. They began to move forward, step by careful step, stalking toward him like tiny predators approaching their first kill. Ravka watched with a small smile. Other adult Velkari gathered at the edges of the room, whispering to each other. Some seemed amused. Others made quiet bets, wondering how quickly the human would run or beg. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. She knew Tejo did not understand what was happening. She knew he did not see the cultural importance of this moment. She knew he would not react the way the Velkari expected. And she knew, with complete certainty, that something was about to go very wrong. Tejo looked at the 3 small cubs stalking toward him. He looked at their fierce faces and their tiny claws. He looked at the way they moved so seriously, so carefully, like this was the most important thing in the world, and he smiled. "Well," he said softly, crouching down to their level, "look at you 3. The cubs kept coming, growling, their hunting stance perfect. The silver-furred female was only a few steps away now. Her whole body was tense, ready to spring. Yuna held her breath. Ravka leaned forward. The room went silent. The cub leaped. The silver-furred cub flew through the air with her claws stretched forward and her small fangs showing. She had practiced this jump 100 times. She had dreamed of this moment, the first time she would use her hunting stance against real prey. She would make the human scream. She would make it run. She would prove to everyone that she was a true hunter. Tejo's hand moved faster than anyone expected. He caught her in midair, his fingers wrapping gently around her middle. She weighed almost nothing to him, like a bag of cotton. Her claws scratched at his arm but could not break through his jacket. Her back legs kicked at empty air. "Well, aren't you fierce?" Tejo said, and he laughed. The sound filled the silent room. It was not a cruel laugh or a mocking laugh. It was warm and genuine, the laugh of someone who had just seen something wonderful. The cub's hunting stance broke completely. Her fur flattened, her ears folded back, her mouth opened, but instead of a growl, a strange chirping sound came out. It was a noise that adult Velkari had not heard in many, many years. It was the sound of a cub who was utterly confused. Tejo held her carefully, supporting her weight so she was comfortable. "Look at those claws," he said with admiration. "And your form was perfect. You would have scared anyone." The cub stared at him. Her yellow eyes were wide. She did not know what to do. Nothing in her training had prepared her for this. The prey was supposed to be afraid. The prey was supposed to run or freeze or beg. The prey was not supposed to catch her and compliment her technique. Gently, Tejo set her down on the ground and ruffled the fur on top of her head. "Good job, little one." The cub sat where he placed her, too stunned to move. The other two cubs had frozen mid-stalk. They looked at their leader sitting on the ground with her fur messed up, and they did not know what to think. This was wrong. This was all wrong, but they were young. And they were brave. And they would not let their friend fight alone. The smaller cubs looked at each other and made a decision. Together, they launched themselves at the human, one from each side. Their timing was good. Their coordination was impressive. Any normal prey would have been overwhelmed. Tejo caught one under each arm. He lifted them easily, tucking them against his sides like they were packages he needed to carry. The cubs growled and snapped and tried to scratch him, but his grip was firm. Without being painful, they could not escape, and they could not hurt him. "Two at once," Tejo said happily. "You're working together. That's very smart. Good teamwork." One of the cubs, a male with dark stripes, tried to bite Tejo's hand. His small fangs pressed against the human's skin but could not break through. Tejo had worked with machines his whole life. His hands were tough, covered in calluses from years of hard work. "Careful there," Tejo said gently. "You might hurt your teeth." The cub stopped biting. He hung in Tejo's grip and stared at the human with something like wonder. Elder Ravka stepped forward, its yellow eyes wide. The other adult Velkari were completely silent. Some had their mouths open. Others had their fur standing up in shock. This was not possible. This could not be happening. "Put them down," Ravka commanded. Its voice was rough with confusion. "Of course," Tejo said. He crouched and set both cubs gently on the ground. They immediately ran to join their silver-furred friend, and all three sat in a small group, staring at the human. Ravka moved closer, looking at Tejo like it was seeing him for the first time. "You did not show fear." Ravka moved closer. "Should I have?" "Yes." Ravka's claws clicked against the floor. When a Velkari takes the hunting stance, all creatures feel fear. It is instinct. It is nature. Even animals with no intelligence freeze when they see the stance. It is written in their blood. Tejo shrugged his broad shoulders. "They are children. They were playing. Why would I be afraid of children playing?" Ravka had no answer. Yuna stepped forward carefully. She could see the confusion on the Velkari faces, and she knew she needed to explain before the confusion turned into anger. "Elder Ravka," she said respectfully. "May I speak?" Ravka nodded slowly, still staring at Tejo. "Humans have a different relationship with young creatures," Yuna began. "When we see something small and young, we do not feel threatened. We feel protective. Our instincts tell us to care for young things, to keep them safe, to help them grow." "Even the young of other species?" Ravka asked. "Especially the young of other species. It is one of the strangest things about humans. We form bonds with almost any creature, but especially with young ones. We find them," she searched for the right word, "cute." "Cute?" "It means we think they are lovable, precious, worth protecting." Yuna smiled slightly. "Your cubs are very cute to us. Their big ears, their fluffy fur, their serious little faces." Tejo could not feel fear, because his brain was too busy feeling affection. Ravka looked from Yuna to Teho to the three cubs still sitting in a confused pile. This is not normal. For humans, it is completely normal. The silver-furred cub stood up slowly. She walked toward Teho, her steps careful and uncertain. She was still trying to understand what had happened. She had used her best hunting stance. She had done everything right. And the human had simply picked her up like she was a toy. She stopped in front of Teho and looked up at him. He was very tall from her view, like a mountain made of soft material. "Why are you not afraid?" she asked. Her voice was small and high, not yet grown into the deep rumble of adult Velkari. Teho crouched down so they were at the same level. He moved slowly, carefully, so he would not scare her. "What is your name?" he asked. The cub hesitated. "Mira. That is a beautiful name." Teho smiled at her. "Mira, I am not afraid because I can see that you are brave and strong and trying very hard. Being afraid of you would be silly. Instead, I am impressed by you." Mira did not know what to do with this information. No prey had ever been impressed by her before. She looked back at the other cubs, but they were just as confused as she was. "My stance was perfect," she said finally, a little bit of anger in her voice. "My teacher said it was perfect. You should have been scared." "Your stance was perfect," Teho agreed. "You will be a great hunter someday." "But I am human, and humans do not work the same way as your normal prey." "Then what do humans fear?" Teho's smile became softer, sadder somehow. "We fear losing the people we love. We fear being alone. We fear that we will not be able to protect our family." He reached out and gently touched Mira's ear, which twitched at the contact. "We do not fear claws or fangs or hunting stances. Those things can hurt our bodies, but they cannot hurt what matters most to us." Mira stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she moved forward and pressed her head against his knee. It was a gesture of trust among Velkari cubs, something they only did with family members. Teho's eyes widened with surprise and happiness. He placed his hand gently on her head and stroked her fur. Elder Ravka made a choking sound. The other adult Velkari were whispering furiously to each other. Some looked angry. Some looked fascinated. Some looked like their entire understanding of the universe had just broken into pieces. The two smaller cubs watched Mira with the human, and after a moment, they crept forward too. Soon, all three cubs were pressed against Teho, touching him, smelling him, trying to understand this strange creature that caught them so easily, but treated them so gently. Yuna watched with a quiet smile. This was not how she had expected the first contact to go. But perhaps it was better this way. Perhaps the children could teach the adults something important. Ravka walked to stand beside Yuna. The elder's eyes never left Teho and the cubs. "What have you brought to our station?" Ravka asked quietly. Yuna considered her answer carefully. "Something new," she said. "Something that will change how you see the galaxy." Ravka's claws clicked nervously. "I am beginning to understand that." One of the cubs had fallen asleep in Teho's lap. Another was purring, a deep rumbling sound that made the adult Velkari gasp with shock. Purring was private, intimate, a sign of complete safety and comfort. Cubs only purred with their mothers, but there was the small, dark-striped cub, purring loudly in the arms of an alien, looking more peaceful than any Velkari in the room had ever seen. Yuna knew that everything was about to change. News spread through the station like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, every Velkari on Horizon's Edge knew what had happened in the nursery. The story changed with each telling. Some said the human had fought off 10 cubs at once. Others said he had used strange magic to calm them. A few claimed he had eaten one of the cubs. Though nobody believed this version, the truth was stranger than any rumor. Yuna sat in the small room they had been given, reading reports on her datapad, while Teho slept on the narrow bed. He had stayed in the nursery for hours, playing with the cubs until they fell asleep one by one. Then he had carried each of them to their resting areas, moving so quietly that even the adult Velkari were impressed. A knock came at the door. Yuna opened it to find Elder Ravka standing in the hallway. The elder looked tired, its fur slightly messy, and its eyes heavy with concern. "We need to talk," Ravka said. Yuna nodded and stepped into the hallway, closing the door softly behind her so Teho could sleep. They walked to a quiet observation room with large windows showing the forest moon below. Ravka stood at the window, its claws folded behind its back, staring at the green world that had shaped its people. I have been speaking with the other elders all night, Ravka said finally. What your partner did has caused great confusion among our people. I apologize if we have given offense, Yuna said carefully. Ravka made a sound between a growl and a sigh. It is not offense, it is disruption. The cubs have been talking about nothing else. They want to see the human again. They want to practice their hunting stance on him. They think it is a game now. Yuna tried to hide her smile. Is that bad? It changes the meaning of everything we teach them. Ravka turned to face her, its yellow eyes intense. The hunting stance is sacred. It represents thousands of years of Velkari history. When a hunter takes the stance, prey is supposed to feel terror. That terror is the whole point. Without it, the stance is just standing. I understand, Yuna said. But perhaps this is an opportunity. Your cubs are learning that not all species react the same way. Is that not valuable knowledge for hunters? Ravka was quiet for a long moment. Your species puzzles me. You have no natural weapons. Your senses are weak compared to ours. You are slower, weaker, softer, and yet you spread across the galaxy like water filling cracks in stone. How? Yuna thought about the question seriously. It was something humans had wondered about themselves for centuries. We endure, she said finally. That is our greatest gift. We are not the strongest or the fastest, but we do not stop. When our ancient ancestors hunted on our homeworld, they did not chase prey quickly like your people do. They followed their prey for hours, sometimes days, walking and walking until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting. Ravka's ears flicked forward with interest. You tired your prey to death? Yes. Our bodies are built for it. We can walk and run for distances that would kill most species. We heal quickly. We adapt to almost any environment. And most importantly, we never give up. Yuna paused. When your cubs attacked Teho, his body did not see them as threats. His instincts told him they were young creatures to be protected, not feared. He could not feel terror because his brain simply does not work that way around small things. But if an adult Velkari attacked him, Yuna's expression became more serious. Then his instincts would be different. Humans can be very dangerous when we or our loved ones are threatened. We become creative. We become relentless. We use tools and planning and teamwork to overcome enemies much stronger than ourselves. Ravka studied her face, searching for lies or exaggeration. It found none. I begin to think, the elder said slowly, that we have made a serious mistake in our understanding of your species. Before Yuna could respond, a commotion started in the hallway outside. They heard the rapid clicking of small claws on metal and high-pitched voices arguing with each other. The door burst open, and a flood of Velkari cubs poured into the observation room. There were at least a dozen of them, all talking at once, all looking around frantically. Mira was at the front, her silver-streaked fur gleaming under the lights. When she saw Yuna, she ran forward. Where is the tall human? Mira demanded. We need him. It is important. Ravka stepped forward, its voice sharp. Cubs, you should not be here. Return to the nursery immediately. The cubs ignored the elder completely. They surrounded Yuna, pulling at her clothes and talking over each other. Please, we need to practice our stances. I worked on mine all night. It is much better now. I want him to catch me like he caught Mira. That is not fair. I want to go first. Yuna looked at Ravka with barely hidden amusement. The elder's face was a mixture of frustration and disbelief. This is what I was trying to explain, Ravka said helplessly. They have become obsessed. Yuna crouched down to speak to the cubs at their level. Teho is sleeping right now. He was very tired after playing with you yesterday. But I am sure he will come see you later. Can we go wake him up? One of the smaller cubs asked eagerly. No, that would not be polite. You must wait. The cubs made disappointed sounds, but they accepted this. Valkyrie children were taught to respect certain rules, even if they did not like them. Mira looked up at Yuna with serious eyes. "Your partner is strange," she said. "He is not like any creature I have ever met. He caught me like I was nothing. But he was not mean. He was nice." "Why?" Yuna reached out and touched Mira's ear gently, the way she had seen Tejo do. Mira's eyes closed halfway in pleasure. "Because that is how humans are," Yuna said. "We like making friends. We like helping young creatures grow. It makes us happy." "Even though we tried to hunt him?" "Even then. Tejo thought you were wonderful. He told me your stance was the best he had ever seen." Mira's chest puffed up with pride. The other cubs crowded closer, wanting compliments too. Ravka watched this scene with growing concern. The cubs were bonding with these aliens, forming attachments that could complicate everything. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. This was not how Valkyrie cubs were supposed to behave. But looking at their happy faces, their wagging tails, their eager eyes, Ravka could not find it in its heart to stop them. A new sound made everyone turn. Tejo stood in the doorway, his hair messy from sleep, and his clothes wrinkled. He looked at the room full of cubs and his face broke into a huge smile. "Good morning," he said. The cubs exploded toward him like a wave. They surrounded him, climbing up his legs, reaching for his hands, all talking at once about their improved hunting stances and how this time they would definitely scare him. Tejo laughed and started picking them up one by one, examining their teeth and claws and fur with genuine interest. He remembered each of their names from the day before, even the quiet ones who had barely spoken. Yuna stood next to Ravka and watched. "Your partner has a gift," Ravka said quietly. "He has a big heart," Yuna replied. "He always has. It is why I love him." Ravka made a thoughtful sound. "The cubs trust him completely now. I have never seen them accept anyone so quickly. Not even their own caretakers. Humans have that effect sometimes. We call it the pack bonding instinct. We form emotional connections very easily, especially with young ones." "It is dangerous," Ravka said. "What happens when you leave? The cubs will be heartbroken." Yuna had not thought about that. She watched Mira riding on Tejo's shoulders, her small claws gripping his shirt while she laughed with pure joy. "Then perhaps we should not leave," Yuna said softly. "Perhaps there is more work to do here than we originally planned." Ravka looked at her sharply. "You would stay?" "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Yuna met the elder's eyes steadily. "The Valkyrie and humans have much to learn from each other, and I think the best teachers might be the ones who are too young to know they should be afraid of differences." In the middle of the room, Tejo sat down on the floor and let the cubs pile on top of him. They growled and pretended to bite and showed him their fiercest faces. He pretended to be terrified, throwing his hands up and crying out in fake fear. The cubs roared with laughter. Ravka watched, and slowly, very slowly, something in its old heart began to change. 2 weeks passed on Horizon's Edge, and the station was no longer the same place. Elder Ravka sat in its private chambers, staring at the reports spread across the table. Data from dozens of sources, observations from multiple Valkyrie officials, recordings of the human interactions. All of it pointed to the same impossible conclusion. The humans had conquered the nursery without firing a single weapon. Every morning, Tejo walked into the training area, and the cubs abandoned their lessons to greet him. Every afternoon, he sat with them and listened to their stories about hunting dreams and favorite foods, and which caretakers were strict and which were kind. Every evening, the cubs begged their teachers to let them stay up late, just so they could say goodnight to the tall human with the gentle hands. The formal hunting stance training had essentially stopped. The cubs still practiced their poses, but only because Tejo told them their stances were impressive. They wanted to show him how much they had improved. They wanted to see him smile and hear him say words of praise. Ravka's claws tapped against the table nervously. This was a crisis unlike any the Valkyrie had faced before. An enemy they could fight. A disease they could cure. But this soft invasion of kindness and affection, there was no defense against it. The door chimed, and Ravka called out permission to enter. Yuna walked in, her datapad in her hands. You asked to see me, Elder Ravka? Yes. Sit. Ravka gestured to a chair across the table. I have been in contact with our leadership on Velkari Prime. They have many questions about your species. Yuna sat down calmly. She had expected this conversation to happen eventually. What kind of questions? Ravka pushed some of the reports toward her. Our intelligence gatherers have been studying human history since your arrival. They have found concerning patterns. Yuna looked at the reports. She saw images of Earth, pictures of various animals, charts showing human expansion across the galaxy. Concerning how? You have a creature on your homeworld called a dog, Ravka said. Originally, it was a wolf, a dangerous predator. Your ancestors turned it into a companion. They changed its nature over many generations until it loved humans more than it loved its own kind. Yuna nodded slowly. Yes. We call it domestication. You did this to many species. Horses, cats, cattle, birds. You took wild creatures and made them dependent on you, made them need your approval and affection. Ravka's yellow eyes were intense. Is this what you are doing to our cubs? The question hung in the air like smoke. Yuna chose her words carefully. No. Elder Ravka. That is not what is happening. Then explain. Because, from where I sit, it looks very much like your partner is training our children to love him. 9. He is not training them, he is simply being himself. Yuna leaned forward. This is what I have been trying to help you understand. Humans do not do this on purpose. We do not plan to make others dependent on us. It happens naturally because of how our brains work. That makes it more dangerous, not less. Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up something on her datapad and turned it to show Ravka. It was a video call interface. There is someone who can explain this better than I can, she said. Her name is Jisoo. She is a human psychologist who studies how our species forms bonds with others. May I connect her to this conversation? Ravka hesitated, then nodded. The screen flickered, and a woman's face appeared. She was older than Yuna, with gray streaks in her black hair and warm eyes behind thin glasses. She smiled when she saw the Velkari elder. Hello? Elder Ravka. Yuna has told me much about you. Thank you for speaking with me. I hope you can provide answers, Ravka said stiffly. Your species has created much confusion here. Jisoo laughed softly. Yes, we do that. It is one of our most consistent traits. She adjusted her glasses. Yuna tells me you are concerned about how your cubs have bonded with her partner. Concerned is a mild word. Our cubs have essentially adopted a human as their pack member. This has never happened before. It has happened many times before, Jisoo corrected gently. Just never to your species. Humans have a psychological phenomenon we call cute aggression. When we see something small and young and vulnerable, our brains produce strong emotional responses. We want to protect it. We want to care for it. We sometimes want to squeeze it, though we do not actually harm it. Ravka looked deeply disturbed by this. You want to squeeze our cubs? Not harmfully. It is a sign of affection. The point is, your cubs trigger these responses in humans very strongly. Their big ears, their fluffy fur, their serious attempts to be fierce. To human eyes, they are incredibly lovable. But why does this make them bond back? Why do the cubs love Taeho so quickly? Jisoo's expression became more thoughtful. That is the interesting part. Humans give off certain signals without realizing it. Our body language, our tone of voice, our eye contact. We show care and safety in ways that translate across many species. Your cubs can sense that Taeho means them no harm. More than that, they can sense that he genuinely likes them. Cubs of any species tend to attach to adults who make them feel valued. Ravka stood and paced across the room. So you are saying this is not deliberate. It is not a strategy. It is not deliberate, but it is still powerful, Jisoo said. Humans have spread across the galaxy, in part because we make friends everywhere we go. We adopt alien pets. We form partnerships with species that should be our enemies. We have a saying, make love, not war. For humans, connection is almost always preferred over conflict. But when conflict is necessary, Jisoo's expression changed. The warmth faded slightly, replaced by something harder. Then we are relentless. The same persistence that lets us bond so deeply also lets us fight without stopping. If Taeho's cubs were threatened, truly threatened, he would not rest until the threat was destroyed. Human protective instincts are as powerful as our nurturing ones. Ravka stopped pacing. The cubs are not his cubs. He does not see it that way anymore. And neither, I suspect, do they. The elder stood very still, processing this information. Everything it had been taught about threat assessment and species evaluation was being rewritten. Our military advisors believe humans are not a threat because you lack natural weapons, Ravka said slowly. They are wrong, aren't they? Yuna spoke up. Humans are only dangerous to those who threaten what they love. To everyone else, we are exactly what Taeho has shown your cubs. Friendly, curious, eager to connect. And what do you love, human? Yuna met Ravka's eyes steadily. After 2 weeks on this station, your cubs, Taeho loves them. I love them. They have become important to us. She paused, which means we would do anything to protect them. Jisoo nodded on the screen. This is both the opportunity and the risk, Elder Ravka. Humans bond quickly and deeply. Once that bond forms, it is almost impossible to break. Your cubs have gained 2 guardians who would face any danger for them. The question is whether the Velkhari see that as a gift or a threat. Ravka turned to look out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Velkhari homeworld turned in the darkness. Millions of its people waited for word about the strange soft aliens who had come to their territory. I need to think, Ravka said finally. This changes everything. Yuna stood. Take all the time you need. We are not going anywhere. She paused at the door. But Elder Ravka? The cubs have something they want to show you tomorrow. They have been practicing for days. They want you to be proud of them. Ravka's ears twitched. What have they been practicing? Something new, something they invented themselves. Yuna smiled. I think you will find it interesting. She left the elder alone with its thoughts, and the vast question of what this all meant for the future of the Velkhari people. Through the window, the stars kept burning, indifferent to the small creatures making choices that would shape history. 1 month after the humans arrived, a formal ceremony was arranged. Representatives from Velkhari Prime traveled to Horizon's Edge to witness something unprecedented. For the first time in recorded history, a human would be officially recognized as a friend of the Velkhari people, not a treaty partner, not a diplomatic ally, a friend. The word had deep meaning in Velkhari culture, reserved for those who had proven their loyalty beyond any doubt. The great hall was filled with Velkhari of all ages. Elders with graying fur sat next to young warriors with sharp claws and eager eyes. Officials in ceremonial robes stood beside common citizens who had heard the stories and wanted to see the famous human for themselves. Elder Ravka stood at the center of the hall, looking older and more tired than usual. The past month had been difficult. Arguments with the council, debates about what this all meant, sleepless nights, wondering if they were making the right choice. But in the end, the evidence was clear. Humans were not prey. They were not predators in the traditional sense. They were something the Velkhari had never encountered before. A species that conquered through kindness rather than force. Their weapons were smiles and patience, and the simple act of caring. The door at the far end of the hall opened, and the cubs marched in. Gasps rose from the crowd. The cubs walked in perfect formation, their fur groomed and shining, their movements precise and controlled. At the front was Mira, her silver-streaked fur catching the light. Behind her came the others, nearly 20 cubs in total, all those who had spent the past month learning from the humans. They stopped in the center of the hall and turned to face the crowd. Then, as one, they dropped into the hunting stance. The effect was immediate. The assembled Velkhari felt the ancient fear response trigger in their blood. Fur stood up. Hearts beat faster. Even the oldest warriors felt a chill run down their spines. The cub's stance was perfect, perhaps the most perfect the elders had ever seen. But then something strange happened. Mira raised one paw and made a gesture. Slowly, carefully, the cub's stance changed. Their fur smoothed. Their claws retracted slightly. Their fierce expressions softened into something calmer, more controlled. "We call this the protection stance," Mira announced, her young voice carrying through the silent hall. "We made it ourselves. It is for when you want to show strength without causing fear, for when you want to guard your pack without starting a fight." Ravka stared at the cubs with wide eyes. This was new. This was revolutionary. The hunting stance had remained unchanged for thousands of years. And now these children had created something entirely different. The cubs held their new pose, and it was beautiful in a different way from the traditional stance. It spoke of confidence rather than aggression, of protection rather than predation, of strength that did not need to threaten. The crowd murmured in amazement. Then the door opened again, and Tejo walked in with Yuna beside him. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy or ceremonial. His hair was slightly messy as always. He smiled when he saw the cubs in their formation, his eyes crinkling with pride. Mira broke from the stance and ran to him. She stopped just short of his legs and looked up. "Did you see? Did you see what we made?" Tejo crouched down to her level. "I saw. You were amazing. All of you." The other cubs crowded around, abandoning their formation to cluster near the human. Some grabbed his hands, others pressed against his legs. One small cub climbed onto his back and wrapped its arms around his neck. The assembled Valkyrie watched this display with a mixture of emotions. Some were uncomfortable seeing their young act so familiar with an alien. Others were touched by the obvious affection between them. A few of the oldest elders had tears forming in their eyes, though they would never admit it. Ravka stepped forward and raised a paw for silence. "We have gathered here today to witness something new," the elder announced. "For generations, the Valkyrie have measured other species by their ability to fight. We asked, are they predator or prey? Are they strong or weak? Can they be dominated or must they be destroyed?" Ravka paused, looking at Tejo surrounded by cubs. "The humans do not fit our old categories. They are not predators in the way we understand. They do not seek to dominate or destroy. Yet they are not prey either. They cannot be frightened or conquered through displays of power." The elder walked closer to where Tejo sat with the cubs piled around him. "Instead, they offer something we never expected. Friendship, loyalty, protection given freely, without demand for submission. Our cubs have flourished under their care. They have grown stronger, not weaker. They have learned new ways of thinking that will serve them well in the future." Ravka stopped directly in front of Tejo. The tall human looked up, meeting the elder's yellow eyes. "Tejo of the humans," Ravka said formally, "you came to our station as a stranger. You leave it as family. From this day forward, you are friend of the Valkyrie, with all the rights and protections that title carries. Our cubs are your cubs. Our home is your home. Our claws are your claws." Tejo stood slowly, careful not to disturb the cubs still clinging to him. He bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Elder Ravka. I do not have claws or fangs to offer in return. But I promise that wherever I go, I will speak of the Valkyrie as friends. And if any of your people ever need help, I will come." A sound rose from the crowd. It started low, a deep rumbling that built and built until the whole hall vibrated with it. The Valkyrie were purring. All of them. Together. It was the highest honor they could give. Yuna stood beside Tejo, her eyes wet with tears. She had hoped for a successful mission, perhaps a signed treaty and some diplomatic photographs. She had never imagined this. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Food and music and stories shared between species. The cubs performed their new stance again and again for anyone who asked. Valkyrie warriors compared their scars while humans talked about their families back on Earth. Late in the evening, Yuna found Tejo on an observation deck. looking out at the stars. Mira was asleep in his arms, her small body rising and falling with each breath. "You did something impossible," Yuna said softly. "You know that, right?" Tejo shrugged carefully, trying not to wake Mira. "I just like the kids. That is all. You changed how an entire species sees us. You made them understand that humans are not prey or predators. You showed them there is another way." Tejo was quiet for a moment. They would have figured it out eventually. Someone would have. Yuna moved closer and leaned against his shoulder. "Maybe. But you did it first. You did it by being yourself, by seeing scared little cubs and deciding to be kind instead of careful. Was there ever another choice?" Yuna thought about that question. For some humans, yes, there were other choices. Fear, defensiveness, aggression. The galaxy was full of people who met the unknown, with weapons drawn and walls built. But Tejo had met the unknown with open arms and a smile. And because of that, everything was different. "Elder Ravka asked me something yesterday," Yuna said. "Asked if you ever felt threatened by the cubs. What did you tell them?" I said no, of course not. "They are children." She paused. Then Ravka asked what would happen if an adult Velkari attacked you. Tejo did not answer immediately. His hand moved gently over Mira's fur, stroking the soft silver strands. "I would protect what matters," he said finally. "However I had to." Yuna nodded. She had known that was his answer. She had always known. Ravka understood. "That is why they gave you the friend title. Not just because you are kind, but because they finally see that human kindness is a choice. We are gentle because we want to be, not because we have to be." Tejo smiled slightly. "The cubs taught me something too." "What?" "That being fierce and being loving are not opposites. Mira has the best hunting stance I have ever seen. And she also gives the best hugs. The Velkari understand something humans sometimes forget. You can be strong and soft at the same time." Mira stirred in his arms, her yellow eyes opening halfway. She saw Yuna and made a happy chirping sound. "Are you talking about me?" she asked sleepily. "Always," Tejo said. "We were saying how amazing you are." Mira purred contentedly and closed her eyes again. "Good. That is correct." Yuna laughed quietly, and Tejo joined her. And somewhere in the station, two species who had once been strangers continued learning how to be family. Outside the window, the stars waited patiently for them to explore. Together,